Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story you'd like to share or comments about the podcast? We would love to hear from you. Email address is giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. And check out our website, giftoflifepodcast.com. Welcoming you to episode 64. We're joined by Chris Whiffen. Chris is currently on the transplant list, waiting for a new heart. But in the meantime, he's embracing life thanks to the amazing technology known as an LVAD machine, LVAD. It's helping his heart do what it can't do on its own. Now, Chris just didn't find our podcast. He connected with it. And when he learned that I'm over 22 years out with my heart transplant, he had to share it with his dad. I am so honored to have Chris on the podcast, and we'll connect with him coming up next. Chris, want to welcome you to the podcast. And, well, to kick things off today, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
I'm a Florida native. I was born and raised in the state of Florida, actually in the same city pretty much all my life. We moved away for about 11 months, went north to Ohio, and then we came back here. So I'm one of the few Florida natives. A lot of people have come here and enjoyed our weather and stuff. I'm 46 years old now. I have a family, father, all that close to me. Good family actually helps with a lot of these problems that heart failure patients go through. Be able to have someone to depend on to help you get through it. And, my dad's side of the family, they had heart failure as well. So you kind of, you just learn to what to expect, I guess you could say.
Now, a lot I'm sorry. I was just going to say a lot of people may not know this, but you are just in the next county as I am. So we are pretty close together, although we've never really met face to face. We're neighbors almost.
Yes. And that's, I think me and you both use the same great facility to keep us here. So that's just great minds think alike.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. So continue to tell us as you were a little bit about yourself.
And at age 37, I was working in Florida. There's a lot of construction. And my dad had an accident and couldn't work anymore. So I took over his construction company, and we were doing work every day, normal activity. And mind you, I never had any crazy addictions as far as nicotine or anything like that would indicate, maybe I've had an addiction that would cause heart failure or anything like that. So heart failure was the last thing on my mind. And I ended up with a summer chest cold, which a lot of times in Florida, people will get that. A couple of days you work through it and you're on to getting healthy. Well, I wasn't getting any better. So I talked to my primary care physician. He said, well, come in and let me give you some medication and we'll get you straightened out. You'll be better by the weekend. So I went in, he gave me a shot, give me some medication. And that following Monday, wasn't feeling any better. I was actually having more symptoms. So I started to go to work. And at that time we had 2 work trucks, one truck kind of was designated for that job. And I decided not to, and I said, well, you know what? I think I'm just going to call the doctor and tell the crew to go ahead, go home, and I'll figure out what to do for the rest of the day. Kind of consulted with my dad. He said, yeah, son, if you ain't feeling any good, you need to go see what's going on. So I called him thinking I'm going back to my primary care, get another shot or something. He's like, you know what? Maybe you need to go and to the ER and have them give you some strong antibiotics to knock it out. So I told my dad, I said, you mind running me up? And sometimes it's just nice to have other people there with you. And so I had my dad run me up, and we went to our local ER, and they started running tests on me and things like that. And one thing led to another, and they said, we're going to do a ultrasound of your heart. And it kind of explained that to me. And I was like, well, I'm pretty sure they're just trying to get what they can get out of the insurance. So they're going to run every test in the world on me. And that afternoon, they said, we're getting you a room. I said, really? I was like, yeah, y'all can't give me antibiotics here or anything like that. And but no, you're going to the chest and heart floor. And I said, for what? They said, well, the doctor will be up to talk to you later. So they put me on this floor, and I'm looking around, and I'm seeing all these people that are, older and frail and having serious health complications. And here I am. I mean, I was mixing concrete 2 days ago in a wheelbarrow. I just need a little get over this sickness. So the cardiologist come up, and he said, you're in heart failure. I said, really? He said, yes. He said, your ejection fraction is between 8 to 10%. You have heart failure. He said, and tomorrow you're going to have we're going to run you down. We're going to do a heart catheterization and see what's plugged up. And we're going to put you on meds. You'll be on meds for the rest of your life. I said, okay. I was nervous, never had anything like this. And so the next day we go down, do the heart cath, no blockages. So I'm thinking that's good. And they're telling me, no, that's not good, because that doesn't explain why the left side of your heart isn't working properly. So they give me some medication and give me the ultimatum that I had to wear a life vest because I was having rhythm issues too at that point. And they said, you have to have a life vest, and we want you to have that before you get out of the hospital, and you'll have to have a cardiologist. And, I never had any of these things. So long story short, they called an electrophysicist in. We ended up having to do a pacemaker due to insurance complications. They wouldn't pay for the life vest, but they'd pay for a permanent pacemaker implant, which was kind of crazy to me. But that was kind of my only way to get out of the hospital. And I was like, I had work to do. I need to get back to work.
Now, is that one of the that also has a defibrillator, or was it just a pacemaker?
This was a single wire sensing pacemaker defibrillator. Okay. Because at that point, knowing what I know now, they were concerned that it would stop, and I was having some pretty bad VTAC and stuff like that. It's dangerous rhythms, So it was more concerning than what I knew, and at that point, because I wasn't following heart health that closely, and so got out. And I went to, I couldn't hardly do anything. And I said, well, this is because I've been laid up in the bed for 18 days. So I'm trying to push myself to be able to get back to work. I can't do that. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay bills. Life just continues on. And so I went back to that cardiologist and went in for a follow-up. And I was hoping they were going to tell me, your ejection fraction's up to 20. And we're expecting a full recovery in like 3 months. At this point, I was doing what I could, getting rid of excess, things I had around that I could sell to get money to pay bills and things like that. And went in there, and he's like, I think you need a LVAD. And I said, what's a LVAD? And in his professional manner, he looked at me and told me to look it up. And I was floored. I didn't know what it was. And so I went back to my truck after I had a visit. And I remember sitting in my truck. I looked it up, and it scared me to death because this looked like it was going to stop my life permanently. And I remember sitting in my truck crying, and I said, this is it. And so I didn't know what else to do. I called the electrophysicist, which I hadn't been in contact with at all. And I said, hey, they're telling me I need an LVAD. I'm scared. He's like, do you mind me taking care of your heart health? I said, do you have a better plan than this? he said, why don't you come up and let's talk about it? So I went up and seen the electrophysicist, and he kind of talked me through a more real scenario, because there's a lot of things that they try before they go directly to an LVAD. And that's where I was headed. So, and long story short, he got me several good years of life without the LVAD, and being able to stay working. I mean, I would go in there with the ejection fraction of 13, and he would say, let's get you back to work. He said, man, this doesn't make any sense. I would leave there with an ejection fraction of 13 and go back and lay sod or whatever we had to do to finish up a job. And in the middle of summer in Florida, that's not easy. And so at that point, I thought that that's how I was going to live the rest of my life, was just going to be like that. And so trying to think, started getting a little more fluid on board, things like that, and ended up, this was around 2020, and that's when COVID kind of come into the picture. And we all knew people that we lost that went to hospitals and that was where they ended up at. A lot of unknown things, if you go to a hospital, you can be able to see your family, things like that. A lot of things that kind of would make you want to stay away from the hospital if you weren't uncertain, So I ended up with COVID, and I went to my primary care, and it wasn't a bad, I didn't have a bad feeling of it. It wasn't like I was where I couldn't breathe or anything like that. I did have some respiratory problems, but they were resolved with, simple steroids and things like that. And the only thing that I did notice was that my heart rate stayed up. I would walk and keep my heart rate down, and it never went back down. So that was concerning to me. And long story short, I contacted Tampa General and asked them, because COVID was new to everyone at that point. So they didn't really know what to expect 3 months after COVID. You had COVID, does it take 3 months for your heart rate to kind of settle back down, things to get back to normal, things like that. So they were telling me, this should happen, that should happen, look for this, giving me all the key points to look for. Excuse me. And so I got kind of through that somewhat, and was going back and forth with my electrophysicist, my cardiologist at the time, and we were trying to figure out what to do about the fluid on board. And he told me, he said, I think you could benefit from a dual sensing pacemaker. He said, maybe we could get the right ventura and the left ventura working together better and get you some more fluid, help keep the fluid off. So they signed me up to come for outpatient to do a pacemaker upgrade. And he wasn't there. It was a different electrophysicist that actually did it. They had complications. I'm laying there, and they were trying to get the leads in the heart. And I don't know if you've ever had that done, but when you're awake and you can hear them and you're talking about poking things around your heart, it's a little nerve-wracking. And
to say the least, yeah. Now I've had a pacemaker put in, but I was out when I had mine put in. So yeah, that's a little scary if you ask me.
Yeah, and they put in the leads, and I remember he had someone on the phone, and I'm thinking, wow, this is phone a friend to figure out how to get these leads in. And he was talking to another cardiologist, and the cardiologist was telling him to rotate the leads so they can go in. I'm thinking, he's going to go, something bad's going to happen here. So they get the leads and all in, and then they go to connect the pacemaker. And I'm I'm listening, so I'm paying attention to what they're saying. And then they realize the leads aren't long enough to reach the pacemaker. So
now I got to ask you though, were you supposed to be out, or was it like they knew that you were pretty well hearing everything, or was you just not all the way out?
No, they knew I was awake because I guess with my issues, they don't really like to put me out, because they'll put you in like what they call twilight, which I'm sure you've been there as well.
Oh, yeah.
And so long story short, the pacemaker rep, because they're there when they do all that stuff, because they're setting the equipment up when they get done. He goes back to his car and gets a whole nother packet that has the correct leads and the correct pacemaker. So I get it in. They get it in. They evidently the second set of leads went in better than the first set. And this procedure was supposed to be a 2-hour procedure. 6 hours later, I'm still laying there. The anesthesiologist has left. I have a new anesthesiologist because that one had a prior arrangement to go to. So it's like, this is not normal. And so when I got done with that, I went home and, when you get things like that done, you think, when they turn that pacemaker on, do you immediately feel better? Does it take a week? What does it take? So I had all these questions in my mind. And so I asked those questions as I was there. It's like, yeah, it takes about 14 days and you should start feeling better. Well, 14 days later, I started feeling worse. Prior to that, so I went back to the hospital. And mind you, through all my heart failure, I never had like issues with fluid, swollen ankles, things like that. And so I'm starting to have these new issues that I didn't have. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So long story short, I went back to the hospital. I was throwing up and they told me you got diverticulitis. Well, this is new too. I never had that before either. So they're like, you got diverticulitis. So they give me this medication. Long story short, I went through that bout, never really got over it, and ended up back in the hospital again. And when I got in there the second time, they realized that, this wasn't working. And so they told me, they said, look, they think you're going to have to send you to higher care, and which that was when they sent me to Tampa General. And that was another deal. I mean, it's crazy. Sometimes the stories, they took me to the wrong floor when they got me there. It was kind of a deal where it was like, man, I rolled in there and the emergency services that took me over isn't your typical ambulance. And so they took me in there and they got me on this floor and I'm looking around and I'm trying to figure out, where they're going to take me. I'm thinking this is the heart floor. And unbeknownst to me, they had went to the wrong wing and they had me on the burn floor. And I'm looking around, I'm thinking, wow, these people are in bad shape. They've been burnt and they have heart problems. And I'm thinking, this isn't good. So they finally got me to the right floor. And when they got me to the right floor, I really didn't realize how critical I was. But thankfully, the team over there and stuff did know. I mean, when you come in, they know what to do. And they ended up putting a swan catheter in me, and they were just checking me, trying to figure out what process they were going to go through. The original process was to get me transplanted. But as I was deteriorating, and mind you, the first night that they had me in there, they put me on diuretics, and they got 7 liters of fluid off of me the first night. So I was drowning in fluid, basically. And they pulled all that fluid off, and they started looking at getting me listed for transplant. And I know that you've been through this. When they do the transplant listing, it seems like there's 6 billion people coming in there to do a test on you. And they warned me, they said, they're going to be in here all day tomorrow working on you, getting you worked up for transplant. And thankfully, I was over there because I didn't really realize it, but I was deteriorating day by day, and they knew that it was just a matter of time. And so they were on top of it, trying to get me listed so they could potentially get me transplanted before all this. So they got me over there, got the swan catheter in. I don't know. Have you ever had one of those put in where they go into the right side of your neck?
Yeah, those are fun to have.
That was a new experience for me because it's like your TV at some point. You got an antenna sticking out the side of your neck.
I never thought of it that way, but yeah, you were pretty much spot on.
And when they got done doing it, I thought that they were putting it in and taking it out, and she's like, no, you're going to keep that. And I'm like, So what do we do about moving my head? She's like, you can move your head. And I'm like, I'm not moving it because you've got that thing stuck down close to my heart. And I'm not fixing to take a risk. So I sat there with my neck cranked over the entire time. And I remember laying there one night, and I remember the nurse coming in and telling me, and that's the other thing, you know how it is at hospital. You really don't get a whole lot of rest just because there's so much going on. And she came in, she's like, you need to go to sleep. I said, I'm trying, but all this stuff hooked up to you, it's kind of hard to do it. And I remember thinking I was drifting off to sleep. And I remember waking up, and there's 3 nurses in there, and they're shaking my leg. And I remember the other one, they were coming with a code card I had coded. And so that kind of scared me. But she told me, she said, they've got to do something tonight. This isn't going to work. And I could tell that it was very serious because of the expressions and the amount of care, that they were there with. And everything kind of gets foggy at that point because they were, I was out of it pretty much. But my mom did do a journal of my day-to-day activities there. And they originally tried to put an impella in. And what that basically does is that helps your heart pump the blood before it goes in externally. And what it does is it helps pump the blood so it takes some of the pressure off of your heart. And they tried that to kind of hold me over so they could get me transplanted. And in the middle of them trying to work on that, I started having a right heart failure. So now we go from one side of the heart that never was very good to the good side that has kept me alive for all these years. Now it's starting to diminish. And so at that point, they opened me up, put in the LVAD, which that's something that I kind of didn't even explain in the beginning. But the LVAD, what they basically do is they have a pump that is sewn to your heart, and it has a cable that comes up, does a loop around the top part of your chest, and then exits somewhere down. Some people have it on the right side, some people have it on the left side, down towards your belly button on one side or the other. And that cable goes to a controller, and the controller is powered by batteries, and it keeps up with the data of the pump. Well, they had to implement that into me because the right side was failing. And at that point, there was so much infection, so much things going on that I wasn't a candidate for transplant at that point. I was just too sick. So they put all that in, but I was having so much issues with swelling and things like that. They ended up leaving me open for a couple of days just to, I guess, keep it cleaned out and things like that. And I was having rhythm issues, and they had to, I don't know, the cardiologist told me, he said, I think we shocked you a bazillion times. So I don't know exactly how many times they had to reset my heart, and I know I coded several times, but they put in a right pump to facilitate the right side of my heart, and they put in the LVAD, which that's what their plan was to send me home with that. So the right side was something that was bedside, it wasn't implanted into me. So they sewed me back up and put everything back together, and they ended up removing that right pump and put me on medication to help strengthen the right side of my heart. And that is kind of the medical side of that part of my journey. And one thing that I do wish that I would have got it explained a little better before it was critical, and I ended up going to Tampa General. And that's kind of what I try and do, and I make myself available for them, is if anyone has any questions about this equipment, about things like that, I like to give them a firsthand experience so they know really what they're getting, not because when you're laying there in the bed, sometimes you get this in the hospital, sometimes you feel like, especially if you've had an issue with a hospital, sometimes you get this feeling that you're talking to a car salesman that's just trying to sell you a product. And I think sometimes it works better if you have someone that actually has it and can tell you the benefits and what to look forward to one of these LVADs. But that's the medical side of it. And as far as heart failure, I'm technically still heart failure, but I'm heart failure without any symptoms. And that's due to proper medication and this pump.
Now, because I've never had an LVAD, but I know many of our listeners that have had heart transplants have. How is it living with the LVAD in your daily routines?
Well, the daily routine is sometimes it's monotonous. Because there's some days. You think before you need your cup of coffee to get your day started. Man, when you've got to plug in batteries, change stuff, do all this other stuff, there's some days, man, it's hard to get going. But the benefits far outweigh the what you have to do. And obviously this, and a lot of the listeners and things like that may not understand it. But everyone's health condition, me with the LVAD, I may not do as well as, say, the next person would with the LVAD. So their ability to do things may be greater than mine. But I can tell you through my experience that it definitely improves your life. There's no doubt about that. But the day-to-day routine, where we're at in Florida, we have power failures all the time. And that is like one of the first nerve-wracking things that happened to me. Was I'm laying there, and when they wire you back together and they tell you don't pull on anything, just sit there. It's similar to the same transplant thing. So I'm laying there in the chair, and I'm plugged into the wall, and I'm in an electric recliner. The power fails. When the power failed, I pushed the button to put the chair down, and guess what? It takes electricity too. So it was comical after I got everything kind of straightened out, but I had to basically crawl out of the side of the recliner, and I'm pulling on my chest, which I didn't want to do, but I got to get the batteries, and I'm trying to find a flashlight because now it's dark and you're trying to hook up all these wires and all this other stuff. So which they don't recommend it, but I stay on batteries 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I do that it gives me more peace of mind that if the power goes out in the middle of the night, now you're not going to sleep through it by no means, because the alarms that they have, I believe the neighbors can hear them. Oh. So it's not like you're going to accidentally sleep through it, but it's just one less stressful thing that you have to think about is power failure. And we have generators and things like that, but it's just one of those things when you live in Florida, you just expect power failures. That's just part of it.
And then, of course, during hurricane season, I don't know where you are exactly, how far from the coast, but you can lose power for a week or so.
Yeah, and we're set up. I have diesel generator. So with that being said, we were here in 2005 when Charlie and them come through, and we learned that diesel generators are a whole lot easier to get fuel for, because the trucking industry is always going to be moving supplies in. So the diesels back then, now the systems are so much improved, but back then diesel was cheaper to get when there was not cheaper, but more readily available when there was and you don't have to worry about it spoiling as much either. So just a little more reliable, I think. But with the day-to-day routines, get up, take medicine. I have to check all my numbers on my controller. I email them to a company that takes care of my durable medical equipment. And kind of after a while, you kind of learn what's good and what's not as far as your numbers. And really, I've been rock solid. So that's been great.
Now, how long have you been on the LVAD machine then, if I may ask?
I've had it for 4 years, and I'm O positive. So that's kind of a slow wait on the transplant list. But I'm just grateful. I really am grateful that I have the opportunity to live. I mean, that's because honestly, if it had been 15, 20 years ago, if LVADs were never invented, there's no way I would have made it out of Tampa General. That would have been where I would have stopped at. So, but there's a lot of patients that I talk to that I tell them, hey, yeah, you can go outside, you can mow the grass, you can wash your car, you can safely go on a boat. Now, you don't want to get this equipment wet, but I mean, you can do a lot of things safely. And it's just something you just have to be a little bit more careful with. A lot of people, they carry the equipment in a bag, like a backpack or something like that. I prefer to wear, it's like a muscle shirt that has pockets in it that the equipment slides into. And I prefer to do that because I can feel where all the wires and cables are at. So I don't have to worry about anything getting snagged on to get off a mower. You don't want to grab a cable or something like that. Or, I mean, I weed eat. I do what I can do. And I can say that really hasn't slowed me down as far as having the VAD. It's just a lot of times with heart failure, you just have to take it easy, especially in these summer months that we get in Florida. It's a little hard sometimes to get outside and do much. So you have to pick your times and go at it that way.
Well, it sounds like quite the ordeal, but it also sounds like you have adapted to it well, which is very important. And I think anybody that would go through something like this, making it your normal is the best you can do, instead of
Yes,
fighting
and
it.
that is yes. And I have seen some patients that have them that have there's not many of them. Most bad patients you meet, they are awesome. They're like unstoppable people. And it's not because of the batteries, it's because of the life that they've pushed through to get to where they're at. So most of them are positive to be sitting there talking to you because they realize that all this is a gift. And, it is, and there's some people that it's destination therapy. So what they're looking for is this is going to be to the last day, and so they're making the best of it. I mean, going on cruises, enjoying their life, traveling, doing different things. Yes, they look a little weird at you when you go through a metal detector and you got batteries, strapped to you. It kind of gives them an alarm at first. And but most places, I mean, because you got your bag with all your backup equipment, you've got all your credentials and stuff. It's a little bit scary to them at first, but it's one of those deals when you just learn how to adapt. Taking something from the military, you have to adapt and overcome, and it's just one of those things. I'm hoping for transplant one day, and to do that, I think if you learn to take care of yourself well with this, when you do get the opportunity, or if you do get the opportunity to get transplanted, I think that just makes for a greater life, in my opinion.
Now I want to bring people up to date of what's going on, because actually we talked, I'm going to guess maybe even 6 months ago. I'm not for sure. And I remember you saying, that you didn't have the transplant yet, but you were waiting for a transplant. And that, when you got that transplant, you were going to call right away because you wanted to, be on the podcast. Well, you have not got your transplant yet. So you will be on again. And hopefully you will be on again soon to talk about the transplant. But your story up to now is so incredible that it's a must share, as they say.
Yes, and I think that a lot of people and there's a lot of people that may not. It may take them a while to get qualified for transplant. And if they're in the last stage, this is a decision to be made, whether they go with something like the LVAD to extend their life, or they try and get into compliance to get transplanted, because, I mean, that's a whole different category there. But I had a very good friend. It was friends of my dad, and he was going through heart failure prior to me. And he got explained to the LVAD in kind of a negative light, and he opted not to do it. And a year and a half later, he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And there's too many good people in this world that I think that they need to know exactly what it is and the positives of it. It's not a negative thing. It's not the end of your life. I talked to one patient, and he's like, well, what about my boat? Can I go on my boat? I said, listen, you get the LVAD, you get back into good rhythm, get everything going good, there's more fish to catch. And that's that you got to live your life. Don't stop. Take every opportunity you can to better your health. And sometimes it may take something like this to extend your life. And I just wish, and that's what my goal is to try and help people understand more about LVADs, educate them, let them know, hey, it's not a deal where you stay on the couch. I mean, I get up and go walk in the mornings, and I stay pretty active. There's some people with certain jobs, you can actually have a normal job. The job I did mixing concrete and doing things out there is really not good for an LVAD. So I do other things that keep me busy, but I just want to, let everyone know to stay positive and keep your health in mind, and don't just ignore problems because they don't go away. Your best bet is to educate yourself. And if you don't like the opinion, get another opinion. Don't, everyone's opinion isn't sometimes some things are described not as well as others. And I just want to describe them as accurately as I can,
And I think the key too, a lot of times, if you're in like a smaller town or a smaller rural area, and I'm not putting them down, but sometimes the hospitals don't have the equipment and the knowledge that, because transplant is a whole different animal, and the LVAD, all that is pretty new technology that's been around for maybe 10 years at the most. And so sometimes you need to go to these bigger facilities. So don't be afraid, like you said, to move on to another hospital or, to a bigger, area, because your health is the number one concern that, you must have, and you must take care of it.
Yes. And I agree with what you're saying. A lot of these smaller hometown hospitals, yeah, they serve their purpose, but sometimes when your health requires more care than they can provide. And that's another thing. I opted to go talk to some of these hospitals locally. And when I went there, it's like, I wasn't really welcome at the cardiological level, I guess you could say. I'm not exactly sure how to word that. But I went and I was just trying to explain to the lady there. I was like, look, if you have any critical cases that people may end up having to go to higher health, I'm willing to come in and talk to them and kind of explain to them. And I never really got any feedback or anything back from that. So that was kind of discouraging to me. So what I try and do is I let them know at Tampa General, hey, if anybody's got any questions, and I'm pretty good at talking to people, but if they got any questions, I'll answer those questions the best of my ability and try and encourage them, because that's emotionally, it's a lot to deal with. But once you get everything straightened out, it definitely, on this side of things, I wish I would have went to Tampa a year or two earlier and started the journey sooner instead of waiting till it was basically crashing and burning.
Right. And you've done a great job though up until now. And I'm proud of you too, because as much as you can explain to people, like I'll be at the hospital and they'll say, hey, we have somebody that is just found out they need a transplant. They're not sure they need it. Could you go talk to them? And once you talk to them and you kind of show them that, hey, look, I'm normal. And even with the LVAD, you're going in and you're saying, look, I'm doing some normal things. Yeah, I've got these tubes out of me and I got this backpack that I have to carry around, but I'm not laying in a bed. I'm here talking to you right now.
Yeah, and a lot of those patients too, some of them are seniors, and their lifestyle is going to be different than mine. So technically, when I go in there, a lot of times I'm more active than what they're even looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at me, and I tell them, I say, one thing I will say is I was in bad shape, really, really bad shape. And I honestly believe if I would have got to them sooner, that my outcome would have even been better. Because they ended up having to remove that pacemaker that was implanted at my local hospital, and it had growth on the leads. And through all that, who knows if I would have got in there sooner. I mean, I was in a coma for almost a month. So with all that going on, my life is as good as it can be. But I do believe that if I would have been over there sooner, that my life I believe that the outcome could have been easier. for recovery, and I think there could have been some more positive outs on it. But like you, I just want to help people make those decisions, because for me it was a no brainer. At that time I had a 6-year-old little girl, and and my older daughter, I didn't want her being without a dad either, and so it was like, it's like your life is flashing before your eyes, really.
Yeah.
You think about the boats and all the things there, but when you're in the hospital, you could care less about. I mean, all you're trying to do is get better.
Mm-hmm.
And like my family, my oldest daughter, she just graduated, and I didn't even know if I was going to be there to be able to teach her how to drive a car. So I'm super grateful for the technology, for the hospital, for all the people that take care of us. And I was able to take my little one to her first day of kindergarten, and I was able to teach my daughter to drive. Those milestones in your life, you just learn to be so grateful for them. And it's just one of those things. And when I was in there and COVID was really rampant, at that time they would only allow one visitor a day. So a lot of times I was missing my kids and stuff, and they wouldn't allow the little one to even come in to see me. I'll never forget one of the VAD coordinators. She told me, she said, I can't let them come in here. I said, I understand. I really do. She said, but they can't keep me from taking her.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what does that mean? She said, we're going to take you out on Friday. I believe it was on a Friday. She said, we're going to take you out and let you have a tea party with your girls. And it changed. That was probably some of the best medicine that I got at the hospital, was being able to see my kids. I mean, you can see them on video calls and things like that. You can hear their little voices changing. But when you can hold their hand, you can see them. Right. That helped me recover tremendously. And they don't forget that either.
Yeah.
So
awesome stuff. One thing I just, I remember our very first conversation, and I said it was a while back, but you discovered, and I'm going to let you say it in your words, but you discovered the podcast, and you were listening, and you found out how far I am out from my heart transplant. And tell the story that you needed to go where you went and saw somebody right after, but I'm going to let you tell that story.
Well, the thing about it is with the technology, I mean, when you look at data and stuff like that, and you're sitting there looking on your phone, it's not very promising for transplant. But when I was looking, and somehow, I don't know how, I think it was divine that I found you. Somehow it was on Facebook or something. And I was like, wow, 25 years with a heart transplant. That's awesome. And so I was looking at it and I was thinking, wow, this is not the same data that you traditionally see. And so I started looking and I was like, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't have a platform for podcast. Your podcast is what I had to ask some of these younger kids, what is this? What is that? How do I do this? And they're telling me, oh yeah, that's podcast. I'm like, well, really, what is that? And they're explaining it to me. So when I got hooked up on there, it was one of those things where it's like an encouragement. Even when you listen to the podcast, it's an encouragement. But when you go to see someone at the hospital or something, and they're thinking, well, I only got so long, or I only got this, or I only got that. Like, no, the technology is improving, and I know your story. I've listened to it several times. It's not always been cake and ice cream, but man, the life that has been provided through all this, has been an awesome ride, I assume.
Oh yeah.
And like I was talking to one of the other VAD patients that's currently waiting on transplant, and he's like, I've shared the podcast with him. I was like, man, you need to listen to this, because it's very encouraging, uplifting. And a lot of people, they may not get it. If they live a normal life and they don't have to deal with this stuff, they may not understand it. But when you're going through it and you listen to these stories and you know what it's like to spend 2 months in a hospital, when you hear someone tell their story, it magnifies. And your story, and what was crazy is it was, I went through it thinking, that's awesome. That's probably in New York or somewhere in Massachusetts or something. And then I was like, And I dug into a little deeper, and I'm like, wow, this guy is local. And then come to find out, me and you actually use the same hospital. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And it was like it was directed for me. And I've definitely shared the podcast information to a lot of different people. I'll ask them, hey, you listen to this? And I know it's primarily for transplants, but I honestly believe that as bad as it was transplanted into me, but it is given me a bridge to get to a transplant one day and listen to your story. And I told one of the patients the other day, I was like, dude, when you wake up, I want to know, because I've heard too many great stories about people waking up after transplant and feeling like $1,000,000. And that's the day I'm waiting for, and I know it's nerve wracking when you're going down the hallway and something major is fixing to happen. Your life's either fixing to get better or either it's going to be over. And that's a nerve wracking deal. I mean, that's the real thought process. But I just can't imagine that day when I wake up and, there's a recovery deal, but the feeling from what I've heard, the feeling is crazy. And I've listened to a lot of the stories and stuff, and it's nothing but positive. And that's what I want. I know there's a whole different set of problems that go along with it, but I think I'm ready to trade some of the problems I have for a new set of problems and an extension to my story that maybe, I don't understand why I'm the way I am, but maybe this can help someone else.
Yeah, that was kind of the main reason why I started this podcast. There was a story about a young lady that was doing a podcast on, another health problem she had. And I said, well, gosh, why aren't I doing this? I need to spread the word and, encourage other people. And I will preach till the day I die also. Half of the journey is staying positive, and you are a leader in that also. And that is important in your story and my story. And if anyone's listening, your future rides on your positivity. I believe with all my gusto that that's halfway to the finish line is a positive attitude.
I agree. And another thing I tell everyone, and I just look for positive points in everything I read. And I read something the other day, and it was like, if you're having a bad day, there's another one coming tomorrow. And if today's bad, tomorrow's going to be better. Mm-hmm. So that's it's just been and one day I'm not exactly sure because we don't know, but one day when I get transplanted, we will do a part 2 or a second one, and I hope that I can contain it in the time frame that you have, because even with this bad, I'm bubbly now, and I just like to, everywhere I go, I'm a different person than I used to be. I'm so grateful for life. And I just enjoy being around people and I'm a social person, I guess you could say. And I'll be honest with the podcast, I was thinking to myself, well, there can only be so many podcasts of transplants, but as the technology has evolved and you realize there is a lot more people that are transplanted. There's a lot more people with VADs than I ever imagined. After finding different social pages and things of people going through the same thing, it's like there's thousands of people that are going through the same exact thing that you're going through. And it just helps to stay positive and to be able to encourage other people as well that, hey, you may be having a bad day or you may be having issues, but you can definitely get through it. I mean, if I can get through it, anybody can.
Well, Chris, you're a hell of a warrior, and appreciate you for coming on, and I appreciate that positive attitude, and I wish you nothing but the best, and I can't wait till the day you call me and say, hey, BJ, it's Chris. I got it. I got my heart.
and I'm going to do like you did. I'm going to be like, hey, man, it's been 3 hours. They just woke me up, just letting you know that, hey, I'm pulling a page out of your book. And they told everyone that I wasn't going to be awake, but here I am, and I'm ready to walk the halls.
Yeah, I never will forget that, because I told my wife, you can go home, you can relax, don't worry about anything. He won't even be awake till midnight. I'm calling her at 8 o'clock in the morning. Might even been 7:30 and go, I need my glasses. I'm trying to read here. And I called my morning show partner and was on the radio that morning, because that's back when I was still doing morning radio. And it's one of the greatest days of my life. I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you say as far as the positivity. There's going to be bad days, but if you'll make the best out of every day, look for the positive. Or if you can't find a positive, create one. And it definitely will help you, and it'll help the ones that are around you as well. And you'll be able to get through things. It's amazing how resilient our bodies are through all the things I've been through. It's just amazing. Our bodies are, they're amazing. We're definitely a healing process. But like you say, you keep your head up, it'll definitely work out good for you.
Any last words before we let you go?
I'm just hoping that the next podcast won't be a couple years from now, but if it is, it is. If not, then as soon as I get to where I can, they'll let me. I'll definitely send you a phone call and say, hey, I'm ready. Let's schedule it. And we'll do it. And I'm looking forward to that next chapter of my life. And I'm just grateful for everyone, obviously everyone in the medical field and everyone that listens to your podcast and stuff like that. It's no matter what transplant you are, it's a big deal to go through. But once you get through it, share your story, let other people know, because you don't really realize, I never really thought that my story could help someone else, but because it was just my problems. But when other people don't know how to get through those problems, and you kind of give them a light and say, hey, this is what I did. This is what worked for me. And I'm a faith-based person. I'm a Christian. So my church and everyone's prayers and things like that has helped me tremendously. And it's got me through the rough days. But share your story. Don't be shy about it. It's problems, but your problems can benefit someone else.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I cannot wait to have you back after this heart transplant that you'll have hopefully very, very soon. Be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode of Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. And if you have a transplant story, please email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And also, we'd appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Another podcast you might enjoy, myself and my former radio partner, Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network. Want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark. Like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. "15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. let the people know. One yesterday lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rockin', still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now. Listen now.